So I saw Ari Aster's Midsommar 2 nights in a row, and on the second viewing I was really able to pick up a whole lot more detail in it than I did the first time. Now I don't think this movie is nearly as deep or layered as Hereditary, but I still believe that there's a lot of pieces that may have gone unexamined, or at least that we may have missed upon a first viewing. So I wanted to talk about that with you, hopefully that you see it, and then, share in the comments. Let's have a really good discussion and build upon it, because I'm not claiming that I know everything or that everything that I put forth is perfect or right. I mean, it's all of my theories, and I think I'm right based on some of the things, and I'll tell you about that. But if you catch something else, or you can correct me, then please do. I'd love that, because I want to continue on the conversation. Now, before we get going, if you have not seen Midsommar, this one is going to have spoilers. So there's no way around it. If you don't want spoilers, you can watch my spoiler-free review. I've linked it in the description below. Otherwise, though, let's get going. Cool? Now, right off the bat, when the movie opens, there is that opening card, and it is just that graphic, that painting. And it sits on it not too long, but long enough to at least look at it. Now, because we don't have any context, if it's your first viewing, of what's going to happen throughout the film, this is just kind of, you're looking at it, and I was too. It's like, what in the world is that? What is that? There's all kinds of imagery in there. Well, really, it's the entire movie laid out. Ari Aster has told us what is going to happen. You see, on the left-hand side of the panel, there are some figures with some tubes going into their mouth, and there is a skull above it, and it's all blue or blackish color. And that's death, and that is the opening scene. That is the first act of the film. What causes Danny all of the grief, all of her pain, and really it's her losing of her family, her whole family, right in one fell swoop. Now that is very important for the ending of the film. Now I've heard some people say, well, it's not really connected. I don't really understand. Why is that part in the film? It has to be. I'll get to that a little bit later. But that is the tragedy. Her losing her family is what sets up all of the other events for Danny. Now we also then see the other parts of it, and I don't remember exactly what in each of them, but you do see some dancing around the maypole and even somebody wearing a crown on the right-hand side of that opening card. And that, again, is showing us everything that is going to go on in the movie. Now that's not the only part of art that plays a huge role in the film. I mean, there is so much art to be seen and to take in. And some of it, I couldn't figure out what it was, and I tried to search for it, and I just couldn't find it. And I think it's also because I didn't know what the painting was called. There is one, though, in Danny's bedroom after her tragedy, when Christian is getting ready to go to the party, and she's laying down, and above her bed is a little blonde girl with a crown kissing a bear. Again, totally foreshadowing, because Danny, the blonde-haired girl, at the end will be crowned. And the bear, obviously, as we've seen from the end, is Christian. I mean, he's all dressed up in that, and that's kind of nasty and everything. But it really, again, Aster telling us, hey, this is coming up. Now, when the first time I saw it, and even the second time I saw it, I was trying to figure out, is there a tie-in to Snow White and Rose Red? And maybe there is. I don't really know, because in that the bear is kind of the protector also. And this, Christian turns out to not be the protector at all. Now, if you also look at all of the paintings inside the sleeping quarter, there is so much art on the walls, and they don't focus on all of it, but you get little glimpses here and there. And it really does give you a taste for everything that's going to happen. I mean, there are parts where people are slitting parts of their arms and blood is flowing out, and that is the sacrifice. As the two older couples, when they hit their 72nd birthday, they smear the blood on their hands and then on the rune stones, and as their sacrifice to the circle of everything that they believe. And you also have even that love story tapestry thing. Now, when it showed it the first time, you got what it was. It wasn't like it was vague. I mean, good grief, it was very graphic in what it was laying out. That a girl is going to see a boy and fall in love with him by sight. I mean, she has hearts in her eyes. She's then going to carve a little rune and put it under his pillow, and then he will dream about her. And then she's going to make the nasty pube pie and the period blood drink, and then he's going to eat and drink that, and then he's going to fall in love with her. Well, and we see that that's what happens. As Maya hones in on Christian, she's like him. And we know, okay, that's the girl. But I don't know if it's totally obvious even though we know what's going to happen, if we put it all together the very first time. Because when Maya is baking the cakes and when Danny goes in to make well, it's not really a cake, it's a pastry type of thing, my mind instantly went to somebody that was missing. They were in the pies. I saw Sweeney Todd all over it. I was so thankful that it wasn't. Even when they sit it down in front of Will Poulter and he's like, oh, what is this? It's meat pie. I was like, oh, that's people. It's not Soylent Green. Yuck. No, but it's not. And his was special. You also look on the table with Christian and everybody else's drinks. Everybody's drink is like yellow. It's like lemonade. We'll just call it that because it has that color and consistency of that. Christian's is slightly orange. And my wife caught it instantly. She was like, his drink is different. That's period blood. That's disgusting. And for me, it took a little, I was like, oh. But on the second watch, Ari Aster really focuses on the drink and shows it from different angles. Not so much like right up close to just be like, here, look. But that you can see the contrast in all of his different angles that Christian's is different. And then you also have Maya over there just like, creepy. Aster has already said in a bunch of interviews that this story is based on his own life in little bits. That he went through a really bad breakup and so started writing it. And that was the impetus for this. That his story, the theme of this, really is a bad relationship or the unraveling of a relationship. And you see that between Danny and Christian, that they start out from the very get-go, they're dysfunctional. Christian is not involved or invested anymore. I mean, he's like on the phone. And Danny is codependent in this relationship. She apologizes for everything and she has no strength of her own or even self-confidence in herself that she's apologizing for things that she doesn't need to apologize for. The relationship is over. He just hasn't given up on it or he hasn't pulled the plug. She still is invested in him, wants it to work. He, though, is no. So you think about all of the steps that illustrate how Christian is not interested anymore. I mean, he talks about with his guy friends about having to break up with her or that he was going to break up with her. He doesn't take her, or he doesn't tell her, rather, about Sweden, about the trip. She finds out about that at the party. When there, he forgets about her birthday. I mean, Pele is the one to really remind Christian that Danny's birthday even happened. And that's when he's like, oh crap, does she know? No, she doesn't. And Pele just covers that up for him. And even after that, Christian is less than sympathetic to Danny after they see the sacrifice. I mean, think about it. Danny just lost her entire family to suicide. Well, murder, suicide, really. But now she witnessed two people kill themselves also. That's got to be doubly horrifying. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like to see that in real life. But then for her who has just gone through it, it hasn't been very long, to then experience it again, and then you have your boyfriend, whoa, that was really crazy, wasn't it? That was really shocking. What? Yeah, of course it was shocking. Are you okay? What? Dude, come on, you should know at that point, no, she's not okay. That was horrifying. For any normal person, that was horrifying. Don't even get me started on Josh, who knew what was going to come because he knew what that word meant. Stupid. I'm slaughtering the word, so I'm going to stop that. But he knew when Pele said what was coming up, and he's like, really? Is that real? It's going to do it? Yeah. Yeah. And he's not even shocked by that. That's a whole another issue right there. And then Christian, I mean, he begins to have even more of a wandering eye than he did. I mean, he begins to look more at Maya. He's intrigued by her. She's showing interest in him. And so he's like, ooh. Okay. And then he's more and more and more dismissive. I mean, even when Christian is talking with the dude about, I don't know what he was talking about, something, but Danny comes up and asks if he had seen the missing couple, and he's like, no. Simon didn't even tell Connie that he was leaving, and Christian's like, oh, that's terrible. And then it's, oh, speaking of relationships, and goes right in. I mean, he's so focused on himself at that point. Then you go back to Danny. I mean, she's trying to hold on, but she apologizes to Christian when he doesn't tell her about Sweden, right? He turns that around because I'm just going to go home. And she's like, no. So she's desperately trying to just grab at straws and hold on to this relationship. I mean, she forgives him when he forgets her birthday, and she even apologizes for that. No, it's not fine, but it's okay. And then she takes the shrooms when they first get to Sweden. She doesn't want to. She's not ready. She's like, I need to find my footing. And he lets her feel guilted into it instead of just being like, no, dude, no, it's okay, we're not going to. She gives up herself in every bit of that way. But there is definitely a turning point that you see. And it begins, I think, kind of with the birthday cake a little bit. That she's like, well, no, it's not okay. But then she forgives him, she apologizes, she moves on. So it's not a hard stance. But when they're discussing about Simon leaving Connie, she says, I could see you doing that. That's something you would do. And right there, she is now beginning to stand up for herself. And this is the beginning of the end of the relationship. I mean, it's taken her all of this time, this de-raveling, and I think that's what Ari's showing us, that, you know, you go through all of these, just this painful stuff, that if one person especially doesn't want to be in the relationship, and one does, how they cling on, and it just makes it uncomfortable. It makes it uncomfortable for everybody. And it just really, it should end, even though it's dragging out and dragging out. I love the feeling of the oneness of the family. Now, you think about the village, Pele calls it his family. And he talks about how his parents died, but then he was adopted into this, and they are all his family. He introduces all of the people as his brother or his sister. I mean, that is his family now. And you see them, that they function as one, that they take cues from each other, and that is how they're to behave. And it's not really groupthink. I mean, it's more of just this huge sympathetic response. Like when the old couple comes out, you know, they sit down when the old couple sits down, when it's time. And they eat when the old couple eats. And that happens to Danny also, that nobody sits down until she does. Nobody eats until she does. But even more so, and I think more powerful of them functioning as this sympathetic group, as this oneness, is all of the times that they grieve. Now, sometimes they do celebrate together, and you see them all, you know, like this, and they're taking part in that. But there are several times throughout the film where the entire collective takes on the grief of one. So you have the shocking suicide, which the woman, she dies instantly because she face plants right into that huge rock. But the old dude is sitting there and he's like, because golly, he penciled right off the cliff. Why in the world would you do that? If you're going to kill yourself off something like that, no, you need to take a header and end it really quick. But that's aside, he's like, and you watch the entire family. They begin to mimic that and to feel that. And they're taking part in his grief, in his pain. And they're experiencing it with him, for him, as him. You also then have it with Danny's grief. I mean, when she is crying after she sees Christian getting it on with Maya, that she is so devastated and she's just that utter grieving. I mean, just guttural, screaming out, almost Toni Collette-ish, that she's just, and then the women around surround her and they take it on and they become one. And it is one sympathetic grieving time, that it is the family right there grieving as one, as a whole, not just Danny grieving by herself, alone, having to go through it by herself. And I think that's kind of actually sweet. I mean, it's a little weird and it's definitely disturbing to watch. But if you think about it at its core, she's not alone. She has been brought into this collective and they're feeling it with her. They're taking part with her, which allows her to move forward. And then the final, in the burning of the sacrifice, you know, with the 9 in the giant triangle house, everybody in the family is grieving. They're screaming, they're shaking, they're feeling the pain. And that is just that huge sympathetic response again, that the family is one. And we see that Danny becomes part of the family because she becomes May Queen, obviously. She eats the fish, and one of the girls next to her is like, oh, now you're part of the family. You want to be part of the family. And Danny's still unsure, but truly, at the end of the film, the climax of that, the burning of everything, that is Danny's transition. She is fully now into that family. And if you look, that triangle building is actually an A. I mean, obviously, yes, it's shaped like this, like a triangle. But when the doors are open, it creates the bottom of the A, and there's a window about midway up, and it does create an A. Now, Danny's last name is Arter. So when that burns, that is her final transition, her final transformation of sloughing off all of what was, all of her grief, all of her baggage, all of Christian, everything like that, and it's going away. And as Ari Aster is showing this, and she goes from really sad and just kind of confused, not really confused, I guess, but just she's down. I mean, obviously, she's depressed at everything that has been going on. As the building crumbles, she smiles. And right there, she is fully transformed into the family. I mean, she has become part of that family because her old is gone now. She's no longer Danny Arter. She's Danny and part of that family. And I don't know what their last name is. And that's why the beginning scene is so crucial to the end. Because if Danny doesn't lose her family, then she can't get a new one. That there's a tie there that would never allow her to do that. That's why the suicide happens at the very beginning. I mean, yes, it's depressing. Yes, it sets up all of this grief, but really it sets up the family issue and the transition from one to the other. And you even hear Pele talk about that too with Danny, about how his family died, how his parents died, and then this became his family. And he's really introducing her to that. Now, if you watch all of the background of the trees and the bushes and everything as they pulse and they move a little bit, and even in the buildings as the wood, like it streams back and forth, at first I thought, well, that's just the effects of the drug. But really, I think more so, it's the effects of them finally just taking down their defenses, opening up and allowing the influence to come through them. We hear that several times throughout the film, and that also that everything is alive and connected. And so that's why you see the flowers pulse. And I don't think it's so much to just be like, oh, I'm on a bad trip because I'm on the shrooms, or I'm on a good trip, whatever that is. It's really to experience for them, showing that no, everything is alive, everything is connected. And once you just relax a little bit and allow the influence to go through you, you can see the beauty of the earth. All right, so that was a ton of information. Some of it may or may not have been helpful. If you made it this far, that's outstanding. If you watch Midsommar a second time, pay attention to the art, pay attention to the visuals. See what else you pick up on. See what little nuances you have and what you see and what you hear even. Now, as I said at the very beginning, let me know what I got right. Let me know what I got wrong. Share your own thoughts and theories in the comments, because this should be a really good conversation. Let's learn from it. Let's build on it. And, who knows? I mean, I love learning from everybody else as well. If you enjoyed this discussion, please give it a like and share it with your friends. Also consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for catching with me.